Norse mythology is pretty complicated for those who have not read into it before, but I'll try and lay down some very basic groundworks for you here. Now, before everything, there was a sort of void called Ginnungagap, and this was stuck between a world of intense heat and intense cold. These worlds of intense heat and intense cold merged together, well, gradually moved together, and the mixing of the elements helped to create Ymir, a giant who could produce children from his armpit. And as the ice began to melt, a cow emerged, and this cow began to feed Ymir. This cow in turn started licking ice blocks and discovered Buri, and he had a son, to who I don't know, named Bor. And Bor had 3 children to one of Ymir's ice children, I suppose you'd call them, and they were Vili, Vi, and Odin. These 3 brothers then killed Ymir, and from his body they created the earth. So his skin made the soil, his blood made the sea, and dwarfs were either made out of some body part of his, or they came out of his dead corpse, like maggots. From there, the various gods and beings were divided up into different worlds. So the gods were in Asgard, the humans were in Midgard, the giants were in Jotunheim, and the dwarfs, who also sometimes seem to have been called dark elves, were in Nidavellir, but sometimes it's a little vague as to which creatures were actually dwarfs or not. For instance, one dwarf named Alvis turned to stone when he entered into the sunlight, but this is also what the trolls did, and the trolls were just creatures who lived in mountains and caves, so sometimes there's a lot of overlap between the different creatures. But we do know that the dwarves eventually became known for their metalwork and produced Thor's hammer and Odin's ring. So you can sort of see the connection there between the dwarfs in Norse mythology and the dwarfs in Tolkien. They were into metalwork, mining, a little bit greedy, a little bit vicious, but there are dwarfs in all sorts of mythologies across Europe, but their origins aren't so well documented, so it's hard to say whether or not they were inspired by Nordic mythology or not. For instance, in the Alps there was the Barbagatsi. Now these were dwarf creatures that used to ski down the mountains on their huge feet. And in Poland there was the Kozilek. Now these used to live in mines, so you can see the connection there, and guard precious stones, but they also were sometimes said to help lost miners return to safety. The gnomes that used to do this in Western European literature, however, only emerged during the Renaissance thanks to Paracelsus. But the garden gnomes, or dwarfs, got their look and character from another creature from Polish mythology. He is called the Krasnoludek, if you want to look him up, and he's often portrayed wearing a little pointy hat and is quite jovial. Now, I'd be very interested to know if any of you know of any examples of dwarfs working in mines in real life in history. I had a look around but couldn't find very much, so it seems that this connection between dwarfs and mines comes from Nordic mythology, or European mythology at least.